Magic mirror in my hand, who are the fairest listeners in the land? Oh, hi, you. I'm Snow, and this is Snow Scary Adventures. So, if you're into the spooky, the macabre, or just plain mysterious, please subscribe, turn on your notifications so that you could see more of my videos or listen to more of the podcasts. In this episode, I'm speaking with Micah the Magician, and he is explaining some very weird phenomenon that has happened at the Magic Castle. If you're familiar with the Magic Castle, it is very much a by invitation only type of a venue. So if you have a chance to perform there or to be a part of any of the events there, you definitely have lucked out. I am excited to share this with you. Again, it is another longer episode. I am splitting it in two parts because of the fact that it is longer, but I think that you all will really enjoy this. Now, on with the show. Hi, Micah. How are you?
Hi, Snow. It is such an honor to be on this podcast. And this is literally my first podcast, as we were talking about earlier. I started listening to your wonderful podcast, and that's when my phone died, and I had to get a new one. But the jury's still out whether or not it was your podcast or not, whether the podcast is indeed haunted and haunting other people's phones. But no, it was actually a
I'm
very
so
old phone. Yeah,
scared.
I had like an iPhone -4. So it was time, but
And
it
I have
happened
negative
while
four.
I was out opening your podcast. So again, it's an honor to be here, especially for the first time, Snow.
I
Thank
am
you.
so happy to meet you. I was so
It's a
excited
pleasure.
when you responded to the link. I did have some questions because I know you, I mean, you're a magician, which is amazing. That in itself is its own mystical excitement. So
Thank you.
so that's really cool. But your story is about your experiences at the Magic Castle and what you know about the Magic Castle, correct?
That's correct. Yes. And yeah, and I know two ghost stories that I'd love to share if we have time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, let's start with um the one I think you told me there's one that's like a legendary story,
Yes,
right?
that's
Okay.
right.
All right, I'm
So
curious.
yeah, so I don't know if all of your listeners and fans are aware of this place. And I have met some people in Hollywood who didn't know about it because it is kind of secretive. It is invitation only. It's a
So
place called the Met. Oh, yeah.
yes. So yes, my husband was asking, "What the heck is this? What are you talking about?
What?
Like the
Oh,
Magic
okay.
Castle?" So
What
like
the? Yeah.
I knew what it was because I was like, "It's like
Yeah.
invitation only, like the big shots in magic. Can I go there? All this stuff. It's really awesome." And he was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
really?" I was like, "No, really." And I was just like, "So this is like a big deal story for me because not anybody could just get in there either. So it's awesome."
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm not surprised that you knew about it, but your husband didn't. I've seen that dynamic a lot. And
Mhm.
yeah, it is an invitation only private club for magicians and their guests in Hollywood, California. They label themselves on their own website as the most unusual private club in the world. And it really is. It's a Victorian mansion that was converted into a private club for magicians and their guests, and magicians come from all over the world to perform for you once you're invited. But yeah,
Mhm.
everyone in the castle has a ghost story, whether they're a skeptic or not. They all have a story where something happened that they couldn't explain. And you had mentioned a legend. This is probably the most famous ghost story. Again, if you ask anybody, you'll hear a different story. This might be the most famous one. So, inside the Magic Castle, they do conduct seances, and some of your
Oh.
list, yeah. So some of your listeners, yeah, this is getting better. So yeah, keep listening, listeners. So Harry Houdini, in the latter half of his life and his career, debunked spiritualists as frauds. However, he still kept an open mind, so much so that there are some very famous Houdini seances where his widow attempted to contact her dead husband, Harry Houdini, and they reproduce it for you in the Houdini seance. It's literally called the Houdini seance room inside the Magic Castle. And for a long time, there was one medium who conducted all the seances. And now there's more than one, whatever plural of medium would be, media. Thank you, Snow. Media. Yes. Okay, we've got the plural of the medium. Yes, it must be media.
That's
So
what we're gonna say.
anyway, yeah, that's what we're gonna stick with that. We're gonna stick with that.
Great.
So now there are media, but back in the day, not long after it first opened in the early '60s, there was one medium, and he would conduct every séance every night, and it was an instant hit, which is why it has lasted this long. And uh, every night would end the same. It would last about an hour, and then people would applaud and they would get up and they would talk about how much fun they had because it is it's kind of like the occult meets Disneyland and the Haunted Mansion. It is for
Right.
entertainment purposes.
Yeah, that's what I
However,
understand.
yeah, yeah, but they do actually know what that final séance was like back in 1936, and they reproduce it for you in that room. But it is still used for entertainment purposes only. They're not trying to convert anybody. So, being a show, people would clap at the end of it, and they would get up and they would filter out of the Houdini séance room. Although one night, which brings me to my story, one night was different. So the séance
My eyes are all
concludes,
wide. I'm
and
all.
yeah, yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So the séance concludes and everybody claps and they filter out of the room. But this night, two people stick around, a husband and a wife, and they say to the medium, "Oh, we loved it. It was wonderful. Thank you so much," which is normally what would happen at the end of a usual séance. And the medium said very graciously, "Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it." And the man and the woman, the husband and the wife said, "Yeah, we all loved it. It was great." But that one moment when that girl showed up out of nowhere. That was amazing. And the medium looked at them and said, "Yeah." They said, "Yeah, I mean, it was all great. But when that girl appeared out of nowhere behind you and she was slowly reaching out toward you, oh, gives us chills. Don't tell us how you did it." And the medium says, "I'm glad you enjoyed the experience." And the husband and wife let leave. Well, you can guess where I'm going with this story. There is no girl in the seance. And this particular medium's daughter had died just a few days ago in an accident.
Oh my
And
gosh.
being the consummate professional, one, he didn't tell anybody. And two, he still showed up for work to perform that seance that night. And this husband and wife, who it turns out independently saw this girl, they compared notes after the seance, and they both independently discovered that they independently saw it.
Oh wow.
Both of them were able to describe the girl down to what she was wearing in the accident.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and the medium's life and career was never the same. He took an instant sabbatical, and as far as I understand, he did come back for a cameo or two,
Mhm.
but his life and his career was never the same. And that might have been one of the inspirations why the castle started considering using more than one medium. Eh,
Okay. Okay. Well, that would make
Yeah,
sense.
it would
Yeah.
make all right. It would make
Yeah.
sense. So, yeah, I this was back in the '60s. I was not there, but it's been told and retold by many staff members, and you can even find references to it on YouTube videos. And regardless of where you are on the belief spectrum, that's an incredible story. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
So, yeah, so that might be my favorite ghost story of all time, and it happened in the Houdini Seance room in the Magic Castle.
And have you been in there?
Oh yeah. I've actually performed for private groups. I haven't they haven't allowed me to conduct a séance myself. They do hire specific media. We learned that
Uh-huh.
on today's episode. But I've attended many séances and then I've been able to perform for a private group or two in that room. And Snow, I think you would appreciate this. A lot of people feel a weird vibe inside, but women especially. And as I'm sure
Oh,
you're aware, in the spiritualism movement, it was a lot of people decided that women in particular were the quote unquote sensitive. You know, they had the instinct
yes.
for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there is some truth to that. When I bring in a group into the seance room, a lot of people feel a weird vibe, but it's often
The
a
women.
woman,
Mm-hmm.
right, who feel something very specific that their male counterparts don't necessarily experience. And I
I can
find that
believe that. I can
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
that. I know me
I
and my
do.
husband
Yeah.
will walk into the same room and I'll be like, "Oh, that feels weird." And he's like, "What?"
Right, right.
Yeah.
So you're kind of the sensitive of the
Hmm.
duo there. Yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should check it out sometime. I think
I need to
you
get an invite.
oh, if only you knew a magician, Snow.
Oh, jeez.
Hey,
Hey.
hey.
Oh,
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah. So I'm right. The Magic Castle allows members like me to ask the castle to email invitations to friends like you. So I'm going to ask the castle to do that. And when you get your invitation, have a good time.
Oh my goodness, that would be so exciting. I would
Oh
tell you
yeah,
like
yeah.
immediately, so hopefully we could try to do a seance together. That'd be so much
Oh,
fun.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, the seances are very special occasions,
Hmm.
but it is possible. So the castle usually tells you when you can do one,
Hmm.
but even if you don't do the seance, you'll still have a good time. You still might be able to get into the Houdini seance room, especially if it's not being used.
Okay.
But yeah, if you get to do the seance, you're just going to be over the moon, Snow. I think you would really enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'd be smitten.
Smitten's
That's
a
the
good
best way
word.
to
Yeah,
say
that's a good word. I like that.
it. So you were
Yeah.
telling me not so long ago that you had your own experience.
Yeah, and this can be filed again under, it doesn't matter what you believe on the spectrum, it's just still a crazy story. And I'm betting a lot of your, I'm betting, tell me if this sounds about right, Snow. I'm betting that a lot of your listeners are believers of some kind, but then you might still have some skeptics who are keeping an open mind. Is that fair?
That is fair. Actually, the funnier
Okay.
part is my biggest skeptic so far is my husband.
I thought you were going to say that.
Even
Yeah,
though he's gone with me on things, he's done
yeah,
investigations with me, a whole bunch of stuff, and he's the only
yeah.
one that's really like, but I mean, I've freaked him out um
Oh,
with my
really?
own things because like I've channeled a few things, okay? And I've
You
I've
channeled a
channeled,
few things.
yeah, so I know this is weird. I recently started just kind of messing with dowsing rods. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And I realized that somehow, you know how like every, I guess, sensitive, medium, whatever, has their own like tool. Some
Sure.
will go for pendulums, tarot, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
or divination tool, so to speak. Well, this is, I think this one's mine. It's really weird. And
Interesting. Now, did you
as
discover this recently? The dowsing rod being your divination tool for you specifically?
yes, maybe like within the last 6 months,
Oh, that's really
very
recent.
recent.
Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
got it. Okay. So you some of your listeners might not know about this yet.
Uh, I think some of them kind of have an idea that I do, but not
Got it.
that at that
Okay.
that extent. So it's come to the point where like as I use the rods, I start to envision things. Like envision like people, situations, things like that while I'm using them. So I can get the yes no answers and then I'll be like, "Wait." And I'll get like really elaborate on the yes or the no question, and it throws
Interesting.
who I'm talking to completely off. Like I can see pictures of people like who have passed on visiting specific people I've never seen in my life, and I can describe them, and then the person that I'm telling I see them with this and this, they get thrown off. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's our friend so and so. You never met him." So it's very very different, you know.
That's
um
crazy.
and then I'm also okay. So one thing that I do throw people off with is the fact that I do call myself a Christian witch. And I call myself that because I am very much raised in a Christian church. And I do believe that if you were to say who your deity was, I'm Christian. I am a Christ follower. I believe
Okay.
in his beliefs of, love, light, accept
Sure.
everyone, so to speak. And I always pray, and I've learned that when I'm feeling more sensitive and I start praying, I'll start seeing things, especially if I'm hearing things like people are going through certain things. And sometimes I'll be able to say things like, it's been a long time since you prayed, huh? And it throws them off. And I'm like, the last time you prayed was about 2 years ago when this, and that happened. And I'll like kind of like gives them the small details of when I know the last time that they reached out for help spiritually, and they go, what? Yeah.
Interesting.
And I'll tell them, okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm understanding is you need to do a prayer or meditation, and you need to give something to somebody in need at this moment. It just doesn't matter who, you'll know exactly who it is, and then start asking for what you need again. And sure enough, they get an opportunity to open up. It's so
Wow.
random. And it literally, this all started happening with the last 6 months. Like my stomach like shakes when I think about it because I get like all excited. I'm like, oh my goodness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I am very much very, very sensitive. My husband thrown off. My kids like, yeah, that makes sense. It's mom. Like, you know what I mean? And then
Okay.
but my family, it's again raised in a very tight Christian household. So the fact that my family knows that there's some things that I've started kind of diving into freaks them out, and
Okay.
it's weird. It's its own journey itself, but I know where I'm at, and that I guess that's the best way to say it. I haven't found peace like this since it started.
Yeah.
Like, so it's interesting. I'm like, I finally find like a place where I'm supposed to be. It's weird.
Wow. Using a divination tool that literally shows you where you need to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's an
Hmm.
interesting. I don't know if coincidence is the right word. Yeah, Sting might call it synchronicity, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't
Um,
believe in coincidences.
right. Yeah. But
Mhm.
like if like your divination tool literally physically and even geographically leads you somewhere, which is different than say a tarot spread or a
Yep.
pendulum. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
And you just said this has led you to where you need to be. I mean, that's kind of the definition of how a
Of
dowsing
why it's
rod is
used.
supposed of why
Hmm.
it's used. Exactly. That's
Hmm.
really interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny because people will think, "Oh, you're near water. It doesn't work," and I will trip them out real bad. I'm like, I'm right next to a canal, and my dowsing rods are going every which way, and they're not pointing toward the water at all. I'm all like,
Interesting.
no. I think it just depends on the person. Everybody has their own gift. I guess
Yeah,
that's the best way
and
to say
this
it.
it sounds like this is yours.
Yeah, well, that's been one. Intuition is a big one.
Mhm.
I've had a few visions. Again, it has to be when I'm really like tuning in and like so I do start with always with prayer, and then I go into it,
Okay.
or let myself like connect, so to speak, and just be.
Yeah.
And then that's when I'll
Yeah.
start getting some visions. And then I've gotten and then dreams. I have a lot of dreams. My dad, it's funny, my dad's name was Joseph, and he was so much of a dreamer, and he was a prophetic dreamer. And I always thought that that was
Like in the
interesting,
Bible,
like the
right?
Bible.
Yeah,
Joseph.
yeah.
So I
He
always
was
thought it
an
was
interpreter of
interesting.
dreams. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
And
I
that's
interrupted you,
exactly what
but
he would do too. No, you're fine. That's exactly what he would do too. Other people would come to him with dreams, and he would help interpret them. And I was just like, you're just like
wow.
Joseph. Yeah.
Right.
So it's really cool. Yeah. So I think that's where it's one of those things where, like, I'm more of a faith person rather than a let's talk about everything that's we're supposed to do. Like, yeah,
Sure.
so it's very different. It's very different, but that's a whole other story. But but yeah, I feel like that's where I've gotten a lot of it. My mom's side of the family is very intuitive, but they like to like pretend like they're not, even though they
Okay.
have had very like many visitations from things. Like they are the people that have to help fight negative things out of homes.
Mm.
And I've done that too. So it's very like I think we're just spiritually connected, and it's just one of those things where you just need to learn how to accept your gift rather than deny it. That makes sense. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that's where we're going, and that's why we're not seeing eye to eye. But it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Now, of course, you of all people know that the Bible is full of main characters who have visions.
Yep.
Yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the book of Ezekiel where the visions are so crazy. There are some people who say this might be like an actual UFO kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? And
Like flying
so,
chariots and things like that. Yeah, and it's very weird.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
then
there's certainly a precedent. If someone is of the Christian faith, there's certainly a precedent for this that should not be of any surprise to anybody.
yeah, and and the more you dive into it, like I know this is kind of slightly getting off topic, but I feel like it fits just in the moment. The more you dive into it, and if you're really like reading scripture, both Old Testament and New, and then you start actually digging into older versions of the Bible, not just after King James, because we already know King James was out for anybody who was divine. Um,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
anybody. So when you actually look into the Bible and you actually see the words that were used, witchcraft wasn't used until King James. Like,
Yeah,
so that's one big thing that I've been like I'm into all the weird things. My dad was too. He was all into all the history. So I feel
yeah.
like this like dived me into that history. And I literally got the Bible that was written in 144 AD. It's considered the first ever transcribed Bible. I got a
Wow.
copy of it. It's not like obviously it's a paperback copy, but it's a copy of what that should have been or that was, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And the words used are not witchcraft, or with the word used is sorcery, and in that term back then, sorcery was considered dark magic, like anything that was
Mhm.
dark with intention, with malintent, like
Well, yeah,
maleficum is malintent, and
right.
people are not wanting to understand that when you're using things in divine nature to hurt other people, that's where the sin is, not in
Yes.
the divine nature of helping and healing. Because why is it that we can lay hands and we can have prophetic dreams, but we can't see things? I don't understand.
Right,
You
right.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
If you can do one, why
mhm.
not? Why wouldn't that open the door for another? I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
I have a whole theology or theory of my theology on it. So, but yeah, I've gotten to the point where I've realized that it's all about faith and it's all about love. And if you don't have the both together, then you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get too far.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Well, good for you for finding all this out.
Yeah, it's been
That's
interesting.
great. Yeah, I believe it.
But I mean, I'm saying this in the terms of my husband's still a skeptic.
Sure. But that's cool. I mean, he has every right to be.
Hmm.
This world is big enough for everybody and all beliefs, I think. And you
Oh
brought
yeah.
up something very interesting. In so many quote unquote supernatural belief systems like Wicca and that kind of thing,
Hmm.
often the first tenet is harm no one.
Hmm.
And that reminded me a lot of what you were talking about. Even if people might have different beliefs, even within the Christian faith, uh,
Hmm.
so many so many come from the same place, which is harm no
Harm no
one.
one. Exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and if you start from there, I don't see why we can't keep agreeing with each other, even if we see things from a different perspective.
Hmm. And that's where like that's where I say I follow as a Christian because
Hmm.
Christ spoke to the Samaritans. He touched the lepers. You know what I mean? There was a reason for
Yeah,
that. His intention was to show you that everybody's accepted, not just whoever you want. And
and
um and that's what your job is. Your gospel is walking like him, and walking like him,
mhm.
it means learning how to bring everybody closer together. And then I feel like at that point, that's when you start to really show your Christianity, not when you start yelling scriptures at people. That's when you
Right.
start becoming the clanging cymbals and nobody's gonna listen to
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I feel like you gotta know your Bible before you start preaching it.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So it's just a thing. Anyway, okay.
Well, good for you. Not everybody follows that path, but I'm glad you do. Good for you. Congratulations.
I'm really yeah, I remember like just recently just talking about like the occult. Because you mentioned the word the occult, and I was just like,
Yeah.
well, occult is anything that's been hidden in practice. And I feel like people don't understand that. Occult is not dark arts. It has
Hmm.
been misconstrued as such. And I feel like that's where a lot of problems come from too.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember like just recently having the conversation saying that even Christianity was considered a cult at one point. That's the reason why we were all
Thrown to the lions and everything else.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. This is very true. This is very
Because we
true.
were we were the hidden faith.
Yeah.
Everything else was
Literally,
pagan. It was the other
you
way
had
around.
the Christians had to hide in order to
Hmm.
practice what they believed, which is
Hmm.
true of so many persecuted uh, cultures
Faiths and
who hold a
beliefs and
certain belief. Yeah. Yeah. It's a tragedy.
it is.
Yeah.
Definitely is. Um, okay, so now Let's get back to the lighter note, but more of the
Oh,
spooky note.
yeah. Didn't mean to bring everybody down.
That's
So
fine.
yeah,
I mean, we're not bring. I don't. I feel like I hope it doesn't bring anybody down. I just hope it brings some people to some like idea or some
sure.
closure, especially some
Yeah,
people who are like me. I feel like too many people feel lost.
yeah,
So who knows? But
yeah.
so how long ago was your experience at the Magic Castle?
Okay. Oh, that's right. That's why I'm on this podcast. I forgot.
We're having
Okay,
fun. I
yeah,
know,
I
I know,
just
I know, I know.
yeah, I'm just very interested in everything you have to say. So thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you.
Okay, so second ghost story. This is what happened to me. So and this is very timely because it has to do with a an annual show, a variety show that I put on called The Night of the Raven, and it's a variety show honoring the life, work, and death of Edgar Allan Poe. And for many years, I produced it. I was allowed to produce it in the Magic Castle, in this
Wow.
quote unquote haunted place. So that was surreal to do that show honoring Edgar Allan Poe, the godfather of goth and horror, the detective story,
Yes, that's
inside, yeah,
that's
inside
a
this
dream come
haunted.
true.
Yeah, it really was. And they let me do it there for 15 years. And
Wow.
yeah, so uh, Snow, I don't know. You are clearly a very worldly person. So let me ask you this: do you attend a lot of community theater, that kind of thing?
Oh, attend was part of all of that.
Oh, okay. See, I thought that would be the case. So you were an actress as well, or are you still an actress?
Um, I guess once an actress, always an actress. It just
Right,
depends
that's
on
true.
when the next opportunity arises.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Okay. So I don't know how it's done where you are, but I've been living in the LA area for more than 20 years, and I'm still not used to this. This is how they light all community theater and theater in general. They swallow the entire room in darkness, but then they have some sort of like light tree where, yeah, you know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about, where they drill holes into your corneas
Mhm.
when you're on stage. So basically, if you're on stage, if your eyes go from the floor to the ceiling, it's something like this. Darkness, 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 I'm blind! Darkness, 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 darkness. And that's what you get. Yeah,
It's
and
true.
you
It's true.
yeah, you can't see a few inches into the front row. You can't see a single face in the audience, and that's just how they light everything out here.
That's true.
So yeah, so the Magic Castle was no exception. So I'm also the MC of this show, The Night of the Raven. And one year I was doing it. I was on stage and I was talking to the audience about to introduce the next act. And I discovered that this happened while I was on stage. I discovered this happened after the fact. Someone told me about it later. And meanwhile, while I'm introducing the next act, there's a magician outside the Magic Castle. Now, his name is Jules Lanier. And if you have any magicians in your audience, and I would bet that you do, they probably have heard this name. He was known for two things. One, his copious contribution to the art. I've read some of his stuff, including stuff out of the library of the Magic Castle, and the guy was pretty brilliant. And two, he would come to the Magic Castle and stand outside the building and smoke all night and bitch about the magicians inside that he refused to come in and support. So
Oh
he
my
would,
goodness.
yeah, night after night, he'd stand outside the castle and smoke. I don't even know why I'm here. Oh, there's probably someone inside butchering one of my tricks, probably a plagiarist. I don't even know why I'm doing this. And then when he was done, he would get back into his car, drive back home, and then repeat the process the following night. This would go on night after night. So he's
Everybody needs a
outside.
grumpy grandpa.
Right. He was the grubby grandpa. Yeah, I call them grumpas. It just saves time.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody needs a grumpa. So this grumpa was outside the castle on this particular night when I'm doing the Night of the Raven. So apparently, again, I'm on stage. I don't know this is happening at the time, but apparently a friend of mine, a woman named Sarah, approached this grumpa, Jules Lanier, and she said, "Hey, I got a friend Micah, and he's doing this show, The Night of the Raven, inside as we speak. You should check it out." Now, again, I was told this after the fact, but apparently he replied something akin to, "Night of the Raven, isn't that a bird? Why are you even wasting my time? That sounds even worse than the magic. Why are you wasting my time?" And she says, no, 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 it's something different. You might enjoy it. What do you mean enjoy it? I don't even, not even enjoying this conversation. So this goes back and forth. And so finally, Sarah convinces this grandpa to come inside and come into the theater and come see my show. Now, again, as we have described, I'm completely blind. I
Mhm.
can't see a thing. But I remember that night I heard a couple of voices. And one was, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me, just, I'm sorry, we're late, sorry, sorry. And I know that was Sarah. And a
Mhm.
second voice, "Grr, get out of my way. I want to sit down. I don't even know why I'm here." And now I know that was Jules Lanier. So we get through the show, and the whole time in the back of my head, I'm thinking, who was that guy? I was told later it was Jules Lanier. So the show ends. Of course, Jules Lanier hightails it out of there. He has nothing to say to me. And Jules Lanier died just a few days later. And when I tell people this story, they're like, wow, the Night of the Raven killed Jules Lanier. And now I
Oh
get to say,
no.
no, yeah, it was the cancer. It was his cigarettes. It was his time. I get to be that jerk who says those sentences out loud.
Right. Oh
So,
dear.
yeah, I know, right? But what that means is not only was I one of the only things he saw inside the Magic Castle, I think I was the last thing he ever saw inside the Magic
Oh
Castle.
wow.
Yeah. So now we're getting to the point of this podcast, Snow. Thank you for letting me be here. Ever since then, and this was corroborated independently, kind of like the husband and wife in the other story,
Yeah,
independently by two different staff members. Two different staff members independently since then saw Jules Lanier, and he was wandering through the hallways of the Magic Castle, and he was on his way to the theater where I was producing The Night of the Raven. Now, here's the thing. Since then, and you'll appreciate this too, Snow. Since then, I took a ghost tour of the Magic Castle. There are so many ghost stories that one guy has taken upon himself to make that his specialty. That's what he does. He does ghost stories of the Magic Castle.
that's
And for
awesome.
one night, he gave a tour of the ghost stories. And of course, I was salivating. And what was the word that you used, Snow, when you were so excited? What was that word?
Smitten.
All right, what was that?
Smitten.
Smitten, that's what it was. Yes, I was smitten. I was smitten like snow. So yeah, I was smitten, and I had to attend it. And it was during this ghost tour that the tour guide showed revealed that there was a second smoking section just past the theater that where the Night of the Raven was. So you would have to pass the entrance to the theater in order to access this second outdoor smoking section. So it's entirely possible the ghost of Jules Lanier is actually walking past the Night of the Raven, giving me the bird, saying, "Here's a bird for you, Raven boy. I need another smoke." And then go and have another cigarette. But I like my version of the story. He's come to see my
He's
show.
coming to see me
And
last.
he's
Exactly.
coming to see me live. Yeah, in a time loop.
Exactly.
Anyway,
I mean,
yeah,
that's still possible too.
it's still possible. It's still
Yeah.
possible. Yeah,
That's
I'm
that's
betting
his
your
his
husband.
last memories just kind of
Right. I'm betting your husband, the skeptic, will be like, no, he wants another smoke. He's not coming to see your show.
he's probably yeah. Well, no, he's
Yeah,
like he's not really there.
right. Well, yeah, but if he had to, that might be the first time he would actually acknowledge the presence of ghosts. If he said, no, he's not going to see your show. He
Yeah.
just wants another cigarette. Yeah, that's a
No,
very
he's yeah, because
yeah.
that would be what he would want to do. He's one of those people who'd be like, "Where's my vape? I want to go back outside."
Right. Yeah,
That's
if he's been in the time loop this long, maybe he's found out about vapes. Maybe he's trying to get a vape. I don't know. The strawberry one smells really good. And anyway, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying that's what happened to me.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
trippy.
Yeah, it is weird. And again, regardless, like even if your husband says, "Oh, he's not even there," it's still a cool story.
It
You know
is
what
a
I
cool
mean?
story. It is a cool
Yeah.
story. It's just one of those things like yeah, I don't know. It's a reasonable enough story to also like say to like kids and to say to
I
like
know, right?
so I was
Yeah.
thinking to like remember that one time I told you about Grandpa? You know what
Grandpa,
I
the story of Grandpa.
mean? Grandpa's gonna
Oh
come get you.
man. Yeah. And he's gonna bitch about you outside, and you won't
You
know
leave a
about it
pack of
until
smokes for Grandpa.
he'll leave a pack of smokes, and then you'll know he was bitching about you all night, but you didn't find out about it till it was too late. What a perfect cautionary tale of
Like, there you
Grandpa.
go. Grandpa. When I go, remind me I have to take some smokes for Grandpa.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That'd
Yeah.
be amazing. I thought this was a good stopping point because we're about to get into some more spiritual conversation next. So that would be good for the second part of this episode. So thank you to Micah for joining me today, to Master Sword Music for all the music, and of course, I'm your host, Snow. I'll see you in the next episode.